allow me to introduce to you the presenter. So before you is Wycliffe Waburiri. He's an architect by profession. He is the director at Cubes and Beyond. That's his architectural firm where he practices architecture, project planning, and interior design. Waburiri actually is a very good contact person, and you guys have the privilege of hearing from him, as I'm going to just list a few of the things he does in this industry. So you see, Power Talks expose you to big people in this industry whom you can even get connections and jobs from even after finishing school. So Architect Waburiri is the current treasurer for the Architects chapter at the Architectural Association of Kenya. And in about a month's time, he'll come here at a bigger capacity in that association. He is also council member for the East African Institute of Architects, covering Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and soon to come Somalia and DRC. Waburiri also sits in a committee at the Commonwealth Association of Architects. You guys know Commonwealth countries across the globe, right? So he's also a member of that committee in the Commonwealth Association of Architects. And then he had been recently appointed by Governor Kiambu County, Governor Wamatangi, to an ad hoc committee created under the Urban Areas and Cities Act, overseeing the upgrade of Githunguri municipality to a town status, right? From town to urban area status. And then, I'm still not yet finished. Architect Waburiri has also been involved in the training of students like you at the Nairobi Institute of Technology and also currently at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, where he has taught architecture students and also interior design, right? Architect Waburiri is a mentor to many, including myself. I have spoken with him about decisions in my private practice, the office where I work at. I've spoken to him about, before I even chose to go for my further study, my master's, I called him to talk to him about it. I also even spoke to him when I was coming to apply to teach here at KENCID, the first person I actually talked to. He has mentored several other young professionals in the industry. Although he's also still young, he's not that old, but you can see the influence he has in the industry plus the many high positions he holds. And so for you guys to be able to listen to him, he's actually a person who holds a lot of wisdom, a lot of open-mindedness, and he has been mentored by people before him also. So in this industry, we actually nurture each other. So as a student, you learn from your lecturers, who also learn from others who have gone before them, and that's how we pass knowledge down. Have I left something out? Any of your positions? Oh, he is also he's also a family man and a father. That's enough. So welcome, Architect Waburiri.
I think so. Thank you very much. I didn't know that I have such a big profile. I've just learned from my colleague that I have such a big profile. Thank you for doing justice. I would have said that my name is Wycliffe Waburiri and I'm an architect. I think that is enough, right? Yeah, but in the line of work, we definitely engage in many, many ways. And there are quite a number of things that we do. Yeah, there are quite a number of things that we do that eventually give us new definitions. I would like to just emphasize that I've been a trainer, I still am, and I'm a student of life. In life, you never get enough of learning. When I graduated, I think I thought I knew everything. But then the first place I made a stopover for employment, I was surprised. Yeah, pleasantly so, because I met a guy who had done diploma in architecture and he became my trainer for 6 months. So I think I was doing him a disservice because I was being paid to work, to be his boss, but he did the training. So he trained me on standards and he trained me on how to handle designs. And a lot of things that I do today can be attributed back to that colleague of mine. Fast forward, that was in 2013. Fast forward, 2023, and we are now in the same office, Cubes and Beyond. And I'll just talk about Cubes for a minute, and then I'll proceed to Beyond. I think what we've come to do is to talk about Beyond. So when I was a student, I was very much in love with the works of Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. I think most of you who are in the School of Architecture may know Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. Yeah, Ludwig Mies was an American architect who was in love with the box. And he did a lot of justice to the box. Some of our great speakers tell us to think outside the box, right? But Mies was committed to thinking within the box, so much so that his design language was very synonymous with the box. So when I started practice, I thought that I had it all and that I could have a philosophy of design. And I did a lot of boxes, okay? We call them ideas, right? And when I go to practice, a lot of my ideas were rejected, including one whose model I have, and I put it in my office. I look at it every day. It's meticulously made. White facades, white walls, everything neat. That one hurt me so much because we went to site and we excavated for it. We did blinding, you know. If you've been through construction, you understand the process. After excavation, you do concrete blinding, right? And then we were ready for walls. And then the contractor, not even the contractor, it was a gated community which had architects that designed for it or approved designs. So they told me that they were not able to approve my design because it was a box. And their language is not a box. They do what typically we call Kikuyu Gothic. I think if you've been to Juja, in fact not Juja, from Parklands all the way to Muranga, there's a lot of development that has happened. I think recently it's nice, but previously the designs were all what we called Kikuyu Gothic. So I didn't like them, and I did the box specifically because I was reacting to a style. I was reacting to what I thought was bad. So when my project was rejected on account of being a box, I was hurt. And so what did I do? I took it and I started focusing on Beyond. So the name Cubes and Beyond basically means that I have a concept, I have a philosophy, but I have accepted the realities on the ground. So wanasema kwa ground vitu ni different. I am able to blend in and just run with it. So when I was requested to come and talk to you about the future of designing, I think I did a mistake because I became a teacher. Being a teacher, being a trainer, I decided to venture into some form of a class of theory about future of designing. Let's find out. I don't know whether I answered the brief, but I did a bit of research and I came up with this presentation. So she talked about all these things and she has not seen this presentation. Yeah? I don't know, maybe it's because it's telepathic. Yeah, so I'm all these things, but for today, I would just say that I'm an architect. So the reason I say that I came to teach is because I decided to define these terms. Yeah? And hopefully we can understand why I decided to define them. What is design? I think if you did a search on your famous Google search engine, what you'll find is that to design is basically to come up with or to devise something for a specific function, right? If somebody tells you to design, they're asking you to come up with some ideas, some concept for something, right? And that future, I even define future. You can look at the part that is in red. It's something that is not known, not known time still to come. So when you are designing, it's a bit paradoxical because we are saying that when you are designing, you devise for a specific function or end, which means you must know it, right? But when you say future, you don't know it. Nobody knows what the future holds, right? And the paradox is in the sense that we as thinkers are supposed to provide solutions for the future. When COVID struck, we didn't know how to react, isn't it? We didn't know, and the default setting was that we were asked to stay at home. It was the best part of my life because I had been caught up in this 9 to 5, and I was working in NIT, I was working in JQuat, I was a student of masters, I was a student of life, I was a father, I was a businessman, I ran some businesses, I was an architect at the same time, and I'm a son, okay? And I could not do all those things in a day, despite having had to do everything, at least a bit of everything in a day. So when the government said we should stay at home, I was the happiest. In fact, I grew so big after a month that I had to start biking, and we would go to ride bikes in Karura and along the Eastern Bypass. Yeah, so we'll come back to this, hopefully. So what do we know about design? Yeah? What do we know? We know that we design for humans. You do not design in a vacuum. Whenever you're asked to come up with a design, you have to think about the user, right? And you have to understand that users are very diverse. Today, there's a big debate about orientation. Yeah? And when I was your age, that was a taboo. We would not talk about orientation. We were very binary. You are either a man or a woman. Today, discussions have evolved, isn't it? It's so binary, like in my high school, which was a boys' school. Some of you have been to mixed schools. It was taboo to look like you would be oriented otherwise. Okay, you'd be chased and you'd be beaten. So when you are designing today, we understand that we have to understand the user. The user could be of different religious persuasion, could be of, a very different culture from yours. One of my students went to Somalia, and he was telling me, he came back, he was very excited when he came back because he knew something that I didn't. So he came back and told me, when we worked together, you are a proponent of open plan designs. But if you go to Somalia, they don't think so. I don't know, but he said that when you design, women are not supposed to be sharing some spaces with men. Yeah, I see you nod. Is it true? Yeah. So when you are in our culture, you assume that it's okay to design, and that's a standard. That approach to design has to be as you know it. But as you begin to understand various types of human beings, you begin to understand that you should not be rigid in your approach to design. So we understand that we design for human experiences, and that design in itself is a function of human art, or the human skill rather. Art is defined as the human skill, right? Everybody has their unique skill. We can't have, common skill, and the way we think is diverse. And that earlier I said that we design for things that we know, but we also know that there has been change in the way we live, change in the things that we know, and that each day there's something new coming up because our minds are constantly thinking. And the latest craze, I think you've heard about the chat GPT. You have. The students don't seem to know this. Can I let you in on a little secret? Yeah? I should, eh? No, I shouldn't. Okay. Yeah. But, so let me speak generally. It's not a secret, yeah? If you went to chat GPT and typed the title of your term paper, it will generate for you a full term paper. And your work will be very easy to submit it. And if your lecturer went to chat GPT and typed the same question, they would get a different answer. Yeah? How wonderful. Yeah? So that is what our society is today, that everything is changing so fast. And even you as a designer will have to change, maybe for the better or the worst possibly. Yeah? Because there's a potential that your space will be taken up by a machine, a bot, a droid, that will do what you do better than you. Okay? But not all is lost. Don't worry about the literature. I am interested at explaining what is on the literature, okay? So I looked at a few schools of thought, and there are 3 famous schools of thought about design. The first one talks about complex nonlinear processes, which most of your trainers will teach you about. They say that you have to have a broad understanding of things, but it's always guided by the designer's judgment. So in this situation, your trainer will guide you on what they want. A few years back, one of my mentors sent me a WhatsApp image. Just shared something, and it was about a young man who had afro hair. But when he got into training, he was shaved to a box. We used to call them punk, box hairstyle. And he didn't say a thing. Then he asked me to interpret the photo. Yeah. So what that photo meant is that we as individuals have all manner of ideas, some of which are crazy, some of which are very destructive, some of which are very constructive. But when you get into an institution of training, the hair is cut to suit a particular style. And that is what our complex nonlinear processes are eventually transformed into what our trainers think. And it becomes a school of thought, isn't it? Like when I came across the works of Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, I liked them and I became a follower of that school of thought. Maybe I would never have been the director of Cubes. I would probably have been a director of Makiga, which is also a design approach. The second one is formal and structured, very rational. I think it deviates from the first school of thought quite a bit because it's almost scientific. The process is scientific. And where I teach in Jomo Kenyatta, we have sort of become robots because there's a there's a project in first year, second semester, that is called Principles of Design. I don't know whether you have gotten there yet, but the way we do the principles of design, it's so robotic because they even have a name for it. They call it 16 models. Why are they called 16 models? Because they know that for principle, there are three main principles that we teach. We teach about balance, which is also called symmetry, okay? And we have bilateral symmetry, okay? And we have radial symmetry. Number two, we have something called emphasis, otherwise called hierarchy, yeah? And the last one is rhythm, which is also repetition. So under category one, balance, they make two models. They make two of each. Sindio? Two of each. The second category, they make two of each, and there are three. The third category, two of each, which are also. So in total, they are 4 plus 6. Yeah, 16 models. I think, I've forgotten the number. But the 16 models are very robotic in the sense that we do not want anything else other than what is very formal. That structured approach to a design. And the last one is called design thinking, which is a bit radical. It's new. And most of our trainers will discourage you from doing this because you become lazy. Because it's iterative. Iterative in the sense that he initiates an idea, he brings it to this position, and then she takes over, takes it to that position, and it's like a relay, right? That school of thought of design thinking is the next phase of design approach. And if you have been to big firms, you'll realize that they do their designs in a manner that is very iterative, in the sense that a designer will begin, but the work will end up with a technician. And someone else will do their visualization and so on and so forth. So design thinking, just trying to go to understand it further, is you have to understand the past for you to know your future, right? And there's no design school that will allow you not to be grounded, isn't it? So you have to understand why the decisions that were made before you were made in that sense. For example, she will tell you that buildings will have openings on opposite sides. And she will tell you that it helps to, to have cross ventilation and remove the stack effect and all, what have you. That is past knowledge, isn't it? New thinking probably will tell you, can you glaze all your buildings? And they don't care why you're glazing them. You have clean facades, which are sometimes not very nice in tropical conditions like ours. But because it's a school of thought or it's a trend, you stick to that. So we have to understand why we do things as we do. But future thinking investigates and also inspires. It looks into what else, what if, right? So, what are some of the trends that have informed what we do today? I'm sure most of you have come across virtual reality. In the school that I teach, there's a bit of virtual reality. I see students come up with designs and they give you these goggles and they ask you to, walk around their spaces, which is really, really interesting. I find it way better than when we used to draw, and I was just having a discussion with my colleague here, and we are exchanging notes on what she teaches. I teach solid geometry, she teaches technical drawing, and back in school, high school, technical drawing was very fancy. Used to carry drawing boards, and it was very stylish to have a big drawing board, along the corridors. So I was the prefect for that studio where I used to carry drawing tables alongside, drawing boards. So you carry it across the academic square and you look, very stylish. Your swagger is up there, right? Today, if you carry that table or that drawing board, you'd look like a relic, yeah? It's no longer stylish, yeah? So the trends today are that we are moving into new approaches to design. And there is a new thinking that possibly there's coming a time when you basically just key into a droid or a robot for that matter, you key in your information and it gives you a design on the other side. Sindio? Replacing you as a designer. It's very possible that we are coming to that. So what happens when everybody catches up with the trends? I don't know if I am the only person making this observation. When everybody started doing flat roof buildings, it became boring, isn't it? So what traditionally happens when people catch up with trends is that new ones come up. And if you search, I love this verse in the Bible. I tell all my students about this verse, Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 9. It is written, and the Bible says that what has been will be again. Yeah? Sindio? What has been done will be done again. There's nothing new under the sun. Yeah? It is in the Bible. It's written. He's the only one who probably can't know that, but now you know that if there was a plague in 1920, yeah, it will happen again in 2020. In 100 years, another plague, just like the one that was in 1919, 1920, happened, isn't it? So what has been will be again. Buildings and designs, for that matter, are very retro. A couple of years back, it was very stylish to wear baggy pants. And a new fad came and we put on skinny pants. And again, we are moving back to baggy pants. So there's really nothing new under the sun. Yeah. If you haven't noticed, please keep an open eye. Again, allow me to be your teacher of history, to take you back to these things because I want you to understand the future of designing. And it would be wrong for me to tell you about the future of designing and not talk about what has happened. Arts and crafts movement. I don't know if you guys have been taken through any history of architecture, because history of design and history of architecture, one and the same. Arts and crafts movement, which existed between 1880 and 1920, was basically an attempt to move back to decorative styles that borrowed from plants and they were inspired by nature. Unlike the eclectic designs that had been promoted by institutions of learning. If you don't know, back in the day, of course, our history has been borrowed a lot from the European world. There was a movement that advocated for moving away from what was then considered to be dirty. Yeah? Dirty in the sense that, and I don't know if you check the time, 1920, around 1900s, is the time we had Industrial Revolution, isn't it? Industrial Revolution came with its own benefits and disadvantages. Some of the drawbacks of Industrial Revolution was that we started having mass production of goods, and we lost the human touch to design. So this movement was a reaction to those realities that those standards, if you make something by hand, it's very authentic, it's very original. If you produce by a machine and you have thousands or millions of the same item, how do you like wearing that t-shirt and you find another person with the same t-shirt? It's boring, right? And so a lot of the things that were done at the time became boring. So their critique was sharpened by the items that they saw in the Great Exhibition of 1851, which they considered to be excessively ornate, artificial, and ignorant of the qualities of the material used. Now, the pattern you see to the right, William Morris was a designer, and he came up with this motif, or this design for a wallpaper. The one you see below is in Scotland, and for this house, this guy moved away from the plain glass that we have and started doing stained glass and creating new things that this one is sleeping. Art Nouveau was an evolution of arts and crafts. And look at these two images. These two images are interior decorations, so to speak. If you look at the stairway of that house, it can tell you that there was a lot of, hand-designed approach. And if you look at the peacock room, there's a lot of decoration that was hand, achieved, as opposed to the walls of your building. If you look at the walls of this room, they are very plain and boring. Yeah? And this is what we have become accustomed to, that we no longer have the human touch to the spaces that we live in. I don't like this space. But it is nice, isn't it? It is nice. And as a designer, I probably will look at how else can I do this space to achieve an economical result. And that's where the designer's mind comes in. And you will never run away from nature. A lot of our inspirations come from nature. I picked on these two just so that we can also spur discussion on our inspiration. On the right is the Batmobile. I don't know if you're familiar with the Batmobile. Yeah, the Batmobile is one of those elements in the pop culture that are very strong. And if you look at the description of the Batmobile of the 1940s, and subsequently what became the Beast, especially during the period of Barack Obama's presidency, you realize that a lot of the features in the presidential Beast were borrowed from the Batmobile. And if you look at the Batmobile itself, is inspired by what? By the bat. Which is, or you don't know that the Batmobile is Batman's car? At least these guys know, but you guys are not fans of comic books. Oh, I'm sorry. You know the new Batman, the old Batman. Okay, pardon me, but what I intended with these two images is to show you that a lot of the fiction, a lot of the ideas that in the 1940s and for you maybe in the 2000s will come to fruition in just about 50 years. So the crazy things that you may dream of will come to be, will come to be in not so long a future. So don't be afraid of dreaming, because as you dream and as you grow, some of those things solidify and become realities. This building, and probably it's my last slide, second last, this building is a very futuristic building. It's the Museum for the Future. It's in Dubai. You can see it under construction, right? You can even Google it. It defies a lot of the conventional thinking that has been, we say that the knowledge we learn in class, some people say it's gospel truth, but it's not. Your tutors will tell you everything, but will never teach you about the realities of life, because that's what they know. We teach what we know. Most times we are afraid of teaching what we don't know. If you come to JQuat, you'll be told that I teach in first year, because it's the only space where you are allowed to dream. In first year, you can have crazy ideas. When students join, you ask them, what do you think architecture is? Most of them tell us that it is a building. And then we tell them, 50% of you will never practice architecture. Then they say we are doomsayers. And we tell them, come back after 4 years. And then in the fourth year of study, half of them you know, just like a prophecy, do not proceed to practice. They choose to do other things. Some of them become TikTokers, others become content creators. They basically just take photos of themselves and post them on social media, and they get a lot of money. I find it narcissistic, but it's nice, because if people didn't like those photos, you would not have traction, isn't it? If you are in love with a building and you romanticize it so much, you take photos every day and post on social media and get following because you have posted photos of yourself in front of that building, and it gives you pleasure, so be it, isn't it? So there's nothing wrong with telling you to dream, because in that dream could be a reality, or it could be new discoveries. So this building has, if you look at it, and the one behind it was designed and engineers were involved. And engineers said that, our columns must run top down. For us as designers, as architects, our biggest enemies are engineers. Yeah, because they kill our dreams. This dream here probably would have been killed if the engineer was not a free thinker. And my colleague who is an architect will tell you, if you walk around Nairobi, almost all our buildings are safe, or at least have columns running top down. We don't have dynamic, free-thinking designs like this one. Why? Because we're afraid to think outside the box. Okay, so I said this is my penultimate slide. Allow me to just sum up what we've said. That design is now becoming more and more digital. Technical drawing is no longer a case of a drawing board and a T-square and set squares. Rather, it has evolved to a beastly laptop. I have seen laptops that, and even not just laptops, I've seen guys call them beasts, gaming computers for rendering. So today you find guys transnighting and rendering the whole night to come up with an impressive image, right? A few years, 20 years ago, there was no rendering. You would have watercolor painted renders. I used to do, you come up with this design and then you spend another 3 days doing a watercolor rendering of the same. You've done your technical drawings, they've gone to, construction, but you're still romanticizing your building in watercolor. Or you can even, we had a lot of presentation media that you could borrow, but today we are seeing a lot of digital presentations. But something that is very key is that our uniqueness and our designs into the future will be appreciated if you are original. When I was at NIT, I was invited to an interior design class as an external examiner. I was the head of department, the building department. Interior design was a department of its own. So we were invited, and there was a presentation about product design. There's a chair that was presented, and everybody liked it. And it was out of this world. In fact, there they make the real object. So you carry the chair and bring it to school. Then when I left, and I was randomly checking stuff on Pinterest. And your gaze is as good as mine. The surprise that hit me, I basically just took that photo and forwarded it to the principal of NIT, and I told her, please, can you hide that chair? It's going to be an embarrassment to you and us who participated in the process of vetting. If possible, can you recall the marks for that student? Ask them to come back for a review and tell them the truth. Sadly, just like the Nyambaria A's, you can't take them back. You're aware that Nyambaria students, all of them had A. It's the only place in Kenya with the highest density of geniuses in the world, in fact. So it is impossible to be that different if you are not choosing to be original, isn't it? So originality is going to be a key driver of our design. Social media means business. I think you already know that with a good social media account, a good traction, you can pretty much just do your business there. You've seen TikTokers like who? I just know one. Eh? Anyone who can guess? Eh? I don't know Crazy Ken. Who is that? No. Eh? I know this Luya girl who danced away. Yes. Yeah. She's my sister. Brick and mortar will get smarter. Today we have 3D printing. We have seen buildings. I think we have a building, I can't remember whether it was in South Sea or somewhere, that was 3D printed. And we are going to see a lot of new technology which is going to cut on cost of construction. So we are moving, not just for architects, for buildings, for all designers across board. With 3D printing, the work that can be done by 1,000 men can be done by a single machine. The time it takes you to bring up a building like KICC, or which is the tallest in Kenya? GTC, can be done in an nth of the same time. Yeah? Like if it was 1,000, it could be done in 1,000th of the time that it takes. And that we are going to have online retail. I think these trends are virtually visible to all of us. Today we buy things online more than ever. I don't need to go to town to get a laptop. I simply need to browse on a laptop in my house and it's brought. You guys are on Glovo. Most of you, in fact, there's Njumia. In fact, I was about to say that most of the problems that will emerge is that if you're a traditional African man like myself, you expect your wife to cook for you in the house, you will have a rude awakening. They don't cook anymore. Yeah. We'll have antiques coming back. Antiques, you're going to see retro. You know, design is always very retro. Like the things that we did in 90s are coming back. When I had hair, I would have afro, right? And then it was no longer stylish to have afro. Then lately, I'm beginning to see baggy pants, hair, and there's a culture about this generation. I don't know where, this is an observation, I may be very wrong. I don't know whether there is a universal acceptance of substance. And I didn't say a substance abuse. There is universal acceptance of substance, right? And then, well, it has its own challenges, but yeah, so that's where we are. A lot of those things were in the 90s, not 90s, but the 1900s. I'm a historian, and pardon me if you're not. If you listen to the liberation stories of the black community in the US, in the Caribbean, in Africa at the time, there's a lot of fight for legalization of stuff. And that has come back again. Yeah. Today we hear a lot more on, even our senator for Kajiado, Narok, had said that they should legalize weed. And some of our presidential candidates said that they should legalize weed and they can produce enough money from the sale to repay the Chinese for the expressway. And I only imagined the volumes of people who will have to consume for us to pay for the expressway. You know. I mean, not just around, I'm just talking about even global consumption. So you're going to take the iterative approach to design. What I was talking about, that you take perspectives from diverse disciplines for you to come up with a holistic design. And you are not going to think, if you're going to design for a particular discipline, you know, you are not entirely an expert. Say, for example, in the case of doctors, you may not be a doctor, but as a designer, you'll have to understand how doctors behave. Now, design has traditionally been left to a designer. But in the future, you'll need a socialist to come on board, a doctor to come on board, teachers to come on board, and all manner of people for you to get your design accepted, right? More of what we see in community-based approaches to design. And lastly, this has come up. This is artificial intelligence. This one is here to stay. If you know of Boston Dynamics, I don't know if you are aware of Boston Dynamics. They are coming up with new robots that can pretty much do everything. They are droids. A droid is a human robot, a human-like robot. They can basically come to where you are, pick luggage, place that luggage somewhere else, do backflips, you know. So we are moving away from you being employed to work in an industry, say in a factory, and to have to do, you know, the heavy lifting. There are robots that are coming to do a lot of that. So, lastly, I have a quote which I reduced it to suit what I was talking about. And they say that as human beings, you are vulnerable to confusing the unprecedented with the improbable. In our everyday experience, if something has never happened before, we are generally safe in assuming it's not going to happen in the future. Yeah, pretty much what I've been saying. So I customized this quote to suit the fact that we are going to see a return of old designs. And that is the end of my presentation. I hope I was within 30 minutes.
Thank you so much, Waburiri. I actually want to give you guys a chance to ask him questions on what he has presented, on his practice, and on his opinions on what he may not have covered in his presentations. Any questions? Comments, opinions, corrections? Yes?
Hello, my name is Mike. So I don't have exactly a question. First of all, great presentation. The next thing, if you had to give a one-word advice to all of us, what would it be?
I will take 3, 4. I'd like to have as many questions as possible, because I was told that if you make a presentation and nobody shows interest, then you've done a boring job. I tend to think of myself as a very exciting person, very interesting. Yeah, thank you. So, you said one word piece of advice. I may not have one word, but I have a line that I famously quote. They say that, do not go where the path leads. Yeah? Instead, go where there is no path and leave a trail. Yeah? So, in your pursuit of excellence, or in your design approach, I would advise that don't be reduced to doing what is normal, right? Try and be unique, especially in areas that are disruptive. Disruptive in the sense that a few years back, we didn't have Uber. Today, it's really on your phone. You can go to any possible place you want in the world on your phone. That is disruptive. It's disruptive in the sense that somebody somewhere had to think through and know, for me to be able to achieve all this, I simply need to do ABCD. And if they had conformed, would never have been able to do the browsing. If you think about the space frame, I don't know whether you guys are familiar with the supercomputer, mainframe. You used to call it mainframe, right? Mainframe was the size of this room to compute a calculation like 73 times 79, you know. You needed a computer the size of this room. So today, somebody was able to reduce all that and condense it into a gadget. Thank you. I hope I answered you.
Any other question, comment?
Hi everyone, my name is David. Just a suggestion in your line of practice. For instance, do you normally have like talk shows and workshop where guys, or maybe you could invite us, come and hear more of the industry? Thank you.
Hey, I'm Felicia. Allow me to speak Swahili. Oh, sir, I'm asking, naulizan. So you're encouraging us to be original. Sindo, what if you find an idea, maybe it was done in the past or with someone else, but unaona haijafanywa vizuri, then you improve it. Are you getting my question? So, is that problem is, as in ukiimprove ikue better, itakuwa auko original, as in umeibaidia mtu ama?
One last one.
Hi, my name is Christine. I'll want to ask you, what steps or what advices can you give us as interior design students for us to make our design to be futuristic and to last longer?
Okay, thank you for those questions. The first question was about career talks, basically. I personally do not have my space for reaching out to young thinkers like yourselves, but AAK is a platform where we meet everybody because it has 8 different chapters, and one of them is interior design. So I will, in fact, you know, she's my boss in AAK. She is the vice chairperson, and I am the treasurer. So if she says this is the way to go, uko ndo tunaenda. But what we've done in this council is that we've introduced the interior designers chapter. It's freshly minted. So all of you can come to that platform, and a lot of the ideas, a lot of the thinking that you have here can be shared on that platform. There are other speakers. For your information, there are many people who've walked this path. There are those who have, you know, they trailed the blaze, but today they are experts at what they do. So if you meet them in the career talks and in the field, I think you're likely to learn a lot more. So AK is a platform. We also have other platforms. For example, we have Twitter Space. Even yesterday we had a Twitter Space discussion that was very robust. And you do not need us to create for you those spaces. You can create the platform and invite us to come and speak. Or also other speakers. You have other players in the market. You have KEPSA, you have NCA, you have all these other players in the industry. The second question was about originality. And you know, they say what you're doing even now is copying what has been done before. Yeah, you're in school because somebody discovered that taking you to school makes sense, and it will give us a better person. So what I know about originality is that you can take an idea, improve on it, and still be original. So don't worry about case studies. That's why they are allowed. I think Mwalimu here allows you to do case studies. But in the process, you abstract whatever it is you're trying to get inspiration from. You don't lift. In our classes, we don't allow, for example, we don't allow known logos, because we know that somebody somewhere sat and thought through, say, a logo, and it has its own meaning. So You can only learn from it, but you can't reproduce it. So stay away from reproducing, but consider abstraction. The last question was about advice, if I'm not wrong. The first question and the last question are pretty much the same. I can't say that I have a monopoly on the industry, but the thing you should do is to expose yourself as much as possible. We have trade fairs that happen every so often. We have Homes Expo, we have the convention, like AAK has an annual convention that happens, in Mombasa. This year it will be at Safari Park. Just go to Safari Park, get to see what are the trends, what is the market like. You can also just go to property developers and seek to understand. Actually, you'll be surprised that we have diverse schools of thought. I was surprised the other day when my own colleague told me they are okay with high-rise buildings. And for the longest time I knew it is probably part of the reason why we have the squalor and sleaze in town. People who live in buildings that do not have services, for example. We all know we can't provide water in our buildings, most of our buildings, right? We all know we do not do a good job at collecting garbage. Now imagine if you had a 20-story building which doesn't have water up there, 20th floor, unabeba jerrycan, 20th. You do not have a functioning lift. Even your own building here is a case study. Yeah? So, I mean, the reality... the experience is such that our governments, and I say governments with an S, both national and county governments, have not done a good job at providing services, roads, water, sanitation, and we want to do the trendy buildings that are found in India, China, and what have you, Dubai. You come here, you replicate a problem that, something that we know will not work without doing your due diligence, just because it's trendy, and you fail miserably. So expose yourself, get to understand what the market requires, and also the user will give you feedback. I can tell you, I can bet my head, you build a 20-story building, the people who live in Kibera will not live in that building because they know, nikienda huko juu, I don't have water, it is too far for me. Yeah? They'll just say, we are relocating. They go and create another shanty somewhere else. Yeah. Anyway, thank you.
If there are no further questions, I'd like to appreciate Waburiri for the presentation and for allowing us to also ask him questions and answering them aptly. Now we go to our second presenter for today. Her name is Achieng Aringo. I'll only mention the one unique thing about her before she introduces herself. Achieng is trained as a civil structural